Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network. And we always want to tell you we thank you and appreciate you for listening to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. And also thank you to all of our listeners out in Latin America. So thank you very much for that. And of course, we want to say bienvenidos to you. I'm meeting more and more people who know Spanish, Big C. In fact, you good old boys down south, if you don't learn Spanish, Donald Trump can't build that wall, Big C. And also for you good old boys up in Canada, thank you so much for listening to Charlton and Big C Sports. But Big C Sports, how's it doing down south, you good old boys? You know, I looked at our tweet board. We got some people listening in from Poland. Of course, we talk about Australia. And I don't even know what they're doing down in the south outside of football and all the other great things happening in the world like baseball, Big C. They're also talking about basketball starting up next month, Big C. But how's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're always ready for the cupcake part of our schedule. You know, when we got these non-conference games that we play, we bring these guys in, we give them a little bit of change and stuff. And don't worry about the butt whipping that they about to take.
Yeah.
But that's football in the South. We play real football, and so we invite a few people into our house from time to time to let them know what the game is all about.
Oh, yeah. Well, so much. I mean, Lynn Swan, he was kind of disappointed because he kept hearing this story about Southern hospitality. But what Alabama did to USC was not hospital. It's like Southern hostility is now what they call it. See? So you good old boys did a whipping on USC. But also,
we were kind for the first 15 minutes, Charlton. We let them think that they could play football in the South.
Yeah, well.
You know? And then all of a sudden, you know, when that 16-minute point in the game kicked in, it was like, okay, realism showed up.
Yeah, then
realism. The fantasy was over.
And speaking of realism showing up, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. You know, Big C, a funny thing, because people keep saying they didn't know Cadillac made an off-road vehicle. But I said any car you drive on the road, you can also drive into the mud, Big C. So you got Cadillac rethinking their design. They're thinking about doing a real off-road vehicle, Big C, not just one you get dirty. Your thoughts on that, Big C?
Well, Charlton, that's what that all-wheel drive means. You get all wheels driving in whatever terrain.
That's true.
Every road back down here, Charlton, is not paved. And
exactly.
When you're trying to get back up in the woods and into those areas that are secluded that you're trying to hide from I mean, you're not a law enforcement behind, so you're going to have some little mud on your wheels and stuff.
Well, that's true, Big C. And also, speaking of, honoring things and things that are really important to our country, I think it's National Hispanic Heritage Month, and that's something that, we talk about the Black Lives Matter. We talk about, some people talk about building a wall between Mexico and the United States, which is crazy. But then we have a Heritage Month, which honors, Hispanic Americans, Big C. I just want to get your thoughts on that, Big C.
Well, when you look at the history and the contribution of Hispanic Americans, Charlton, they have a great contribution to American history. And I guess if Donald Trump was to become president, we'd only have 11 months out of the year here.
Yeah, that's true.
He's going to eliminate everything that's involved with the Hispanics.
Yeah.
But, we're in football season.
Yeah.
And you have to think about some of the contributions that the Hispanic Americans have made to the NFL and even college football, Charlton.
Yeah.
If you go back to 1971, Jim Plunkett, great quarterback out of Stanford, became the first Hispanic American to become the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah. And
also the first overall number one pick in the NFL draft by the Boston Patriots in 1979.
Yeah.
You go back and you look at Tom Flores. Also played quarterback in the NFL. He wasn't a number one draft pick, but he played with the Raiders. He also became the first Hispanic head coach in the NFL, Charlton. Also the first Hispanic head coach to win one Super Bowl, but not just one, he won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So when you think about the lineage of the Hispanic Americans here in the United States, let's look at the great offensive tackle Anthony Munoz, who played at USC when they had good football teams.
Yeah. That's a low blow, Big C. That's a low blow, Lynn Swan. I'll get him back, Lynn Swan. Don't worry about it. Go ahead, Big C.
but he was inducted into Pro Football's Hall of Fame. The first Hispanic inducted into Pro Football's Hall of Fame. So you think about the contributions to the society of America and sports.
Yeah.
And also now we have Ron Rivera, the second Hispanic head coach in the NFL, who also took his team to the Super Bowl. So when you think about a culture that has contributed greatly in the world of sports in America, Charlton, the Hispanic culture has to be looked at like everybody else. They're great contributors, and we're not even looking at soccer where they run the world.
Oh, yeah, okay? That's true. That's true, Big C. And, you know, when you think about that also, Big C, it's about having the opportunity to at least acknowledge that. And so I'm proud that the NFL has opened its doors for so many people. We know there was a time when they excluded everybody. And just like this thing with Colin Kaepernick, people want to say, well, you know, we don't want to talk about anything that's painful. But think about the days in the NFL where they did not allow African Americans or Hispanics to play. Well, I'm sure that was painful for the guys who have the talent to play, but they just were not allowed to play, Big C. And so the same thing that happened back then, it took dialogue. I think one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, it was Vince Lombardi. He was told not to draft African American players. And all Vince Lombardi said was, if they can play, then I want to draft them. He didn't care what color they were, Big C. Now, he had a lot of pushback from the good old white boys that didn't want to integrate the league, Big C. But aren't we happy, even if you're a segregationist, and I know they still have that down south, but even if you're a segregationist, aren't you happy that Vince Lombardi had the moxie to stand up against bigotry and say, I'm going to give everybody an equal opportunity, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, Charlton, let's go a step further. Let's look at the great Paul Brown, the founder of the Cleveland Browns and also the Cincinnati Bengals. Paul Brown took the chance on Jim Brown and signed him.
Yeah.
And we all know what happened to the NFL once Jim Brown showed up.
Yeah.
He made history. He changed the face of the game, not just color, but talent-wise.
Yeah.
He became the most dominant and polarizing figure in the league for 9 years, Charlton.
Yeah.
But he paved the way that African Americans could play.
Yeah.
You know, you look over the years, and yet baseball had been integrated, but baseball was integrated for a different reason, Charlton.
Yeah, that's the money.
To monopolize money.
Yeah.
That's the reason why baseball was integrated. People have gotten the wrong story about Jackie Robinson breaking the color barriers, about the Major League Baseball breaking the Negro League down and taking their fan base, putting it in
and breaking the bank.
That's what that was all about. Branch Rickey was about business. He wasn't about integration. He was about making money.
And see,
that part of history is never told.
That's very true, Big C. And also another thing that people got to realize, if you contrast what Branch Rickey did and you look at all the people who were anti-integration when it comes to the world of sports, and here's a kid in Colin Kaepernick, you know, when you think about the Star Spangled Banner, you got to understand, too, that it was written by F. Scott Fitzgerald, who owned the slaves. Okay, so here are some issues that people want to say, well, that's in the past, but it's still something that you got to talk about it, because sports, unlike religion, will bring our country together faster than politics, faster than religion. And it's something I want to pay homage to someone that I have a lot more respect for, Big C, because I love intelligent people. And I listened to, I believe is it Sterling Sharp or Shannon Sharp, Big C? One of the Sharp brothers, the one with the muscles. I know they both. Shannon Sharp has a lot of. He's built like me, Big C, from what I understand, Big C. But I'm so impressed with him. He's an intelligent man. And the fact that he was talking to Skip Bayless over the past week with this dialogue that's been generated, and I'm still waiting for guys like Jim Nantz. I'm still waiting for guys like Troy Aikman. And I'm still waiting for guys like all the other guys, that even the great Al Michaels, okay? I want to hear what Sharp told to Skip Bayless. He said, I want to have my white brothers help us solve this problem. And I want to bring this up to mind, BC, because it's so important. We just had a couple of college athletes accused of sexual assault, one at USC, one at Washington State. We know what's going on all over the history of college and pro football. But listen to this. You don't have to be a man to understand that sexual assault and discrimination is wrong. You don't have to be a man. You can understand that. You don't have to be a woman to understand it. It's just a human thing. And when I heard Sharp say to Skip Bayless, I'm glad to see some of my white brethren trying to solve this issue about equality. It's not about Kaepernick. It's about inequality in our system. I'm proud of Skip Bayless as a Caucasian man, not shaking in his boots like a Bob Costas, and they say nothing other than, hey, what a great golf swing, or hey, what a great play. I mean, Bob Costas, he's been crowned like the paragon of virtue. You've never heard him take a social stance on anything other than his paycheck, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Charlton, when we sit back and look at it, and people have always said the time is not right, we have to find a platform. The platform, Charlton, is white America.
Yeah.
That is the platform. Until white America says there is an injustice, they have to say it unilaterally, Charlton.
Yeah.
They just can't sit there and look at protests that they see. And,
okay, but Skip Bayless is doing it, Big C. Let me ask you, you've been around a long time. You've seen the good and the bad in human behavior. No matter what color they are, people of all colors have opened doors for you, Big C. You've done the same thing for many people, too. So what is it going to take? Because white men opened the door for me. That's how I got into broadcast. It wasn't some black guy. It was a white man that did it because they saw that I was capable. So what's it going to take to get them to the table? I just want to do what Dr. King did, what he was trying to do. We want to end poverty in America, and we want to give everyone an equal opportunity, but it takes the people who are at the power table right now. And the power table are not black men. It's a white-run country right now. I know President Obama is African-American, but if every culture had the heart to eradicate poverty and create opportunities for everybody, I just think that sports is a vehicle to do that. That's what I think we're missing, Big C, and that's why I'm proud of Skip Bayless, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Charlton, anything in America can be eradicated when it talks about social issues.
Yeah.
It can all be eradicated. We're the most wealthy country in the world. But we're also the most biggest country in the world, Charlton. We see issues that occur across the seas. We see bombing in other nations.
Yeah.
We see, people killed, unfortunately. They make us newsworthy all the time here in the U.S. We can go no further than Chicago, Charlton, where there's been over 3,000 citizens in Chicago in 9 months shot.
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to see news from Iraq or any other foreign country. It's right here in our own country, Charlton. There's a reason why they don't publicize the atrocities in America. Because they want the world to think that America's okay.
Yeah, a great place.
Even though America knows it's not okay. We have to fix the issues here, Charlton. And that's about social consciousness. And when Congress and the Senate make social consciousness a part of the issue, it's well beyond sports. Sports can only put a Band-Aid on the problems in America.
Well,
it's just like everyone polarizing, even Trent Dilfer, polarizing Colin Kaepernick, saying that he's a problem in America. It's not Colin Kaepernick that's a problem in America. It's not sports that's a problem in America. But Colin Kaepernick understood that sports was such a large platform.
Yeah, it is.
Hopefully he can bring some attention to the issues.
Yeah, I agree.
Those people, Charlton, listen here. Those people that are racist are offended by what Colin Kaepernick did. It's not about socializing. It's not about being anti-American, because if it's about anti-American, Charlton, I believe there's still 9 states that run the Southern flag, the rebel flag. Now, what did the rebels do back during the Civil War? They wanted to break from America. They said that America should be separated because those who were all white, they should be in one place. They didn't want to be a part of the Union, Charlton. So where that rebel flags fly, is that disrespectful to America, or is that their heritage? It all depends on who's doing what, Charlton, what's accepted and what's not accepted. But when we have these blasphemy people such as a Trent Dilfer coming down on a Colin Kaepernick because he's lived in a lily white neighborhood and never had to worry about crime and oppression, being pulled over by a policeman at gunpoint or something like that, because he was Trent Dilfer. And he lived in an area where those things didn't occur. You can't judge Colin Kaepernick from a media perspective when you have... Let everybody in the media go spend a week in South Central. Matter of fact, no, let them go spend a week on the south side of Chicago where all the fires. All these media experts that are so intelligent in sports and in mainstream media, go spend a week on the south side of Chicago. Rent yourself a hotel room, rent yourself out a house, and find out what real life is all about.
And again, that's why I think about the gentleman that owned the Los Angeles Clippers at a time, and he had those comments. Donald Sterling, and he had and this is what Trent Dilfer needs to understand. I'm proud of Trent for opening his mouth. He's an ignorant person, but at least he's not afraid to say what's on his mind, because it was Don Sterling that had the biggest discrimination lawsuit against him, I think, in California, maybe even in the United States, because unlike what Trent Dilfer understands is he would not rent buildings to African Americans, okay? Unless they played on his basketball team, he really didn't care for them. It just happened to come out on a tape. That's what Colin Kaepernick is talking about. That's what Dr. King marched against. So whenever you tell Colin Kaepernick to shut up, it's like telling Dr. King shut up and sit down and just play the sport. And also, thinking of setting up and sitting down, Big C, I think the segment is brought by the California Lottery, and I saw that the Powerball is up to $222 million, and I think that's going to be won by Charlton and Big C. So I had to sit down, and when I got that winning ticket, I sat down, Big C, because I didn't want to fall down, and I realized it was just a dream. But, at the same time, dreams can come true. I'm still got that call out to T.D. Jakes. I'm waiting on the whole T.D. Jakes. Now, I've given money to you guys, so Buffalo Dollar, Joel Osteen. Big C, what would a buck do for you, Big C?
well, Charlton, let me put it this way. I got a bunch of beer cans out back next to the shed that need to be crushed.
Yeah.
I can take them down to the recycle center, and maybe we can buy several tickets with those things. How much are tickets? You said $1?
It's $2 for Powerball, Big C, $2.
I probably got about $25, $30 worth of recycling cans back there. But I can take those down, and that should help us get to that point.
Well, we'll get to that point, Big C. And also getting to that point, I know there's one more thing before we get into some football. The state of North Carolina, I think you said they moved the ACC championship out of the state of North Carolina. Is that what they did, Big C?
Yes, they did. The North Carolina, they've moved the AC championship. They're going to probably take it down to Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
But they moved it because of gender discrimination. They passed the bill down there on the Gender Equity Act for unisex bathrooms.
Yeah.
And so, there's such a fight and backlash in the state is that the NCAA and the ACC is moving that championship game out of the state.
Yeah.
They've already lost the NBA All-Star game last year, Charlton.
Yeah.
Now they've lost the ACC championship, so you got to look at the financial impact.
Yeah.
That being a bigoted person will cost you over time, Charlton. And that's what we're talking about in this backlash against Colin Kaepernick. You cannot be a bigot in American society.
Not anymore, Big C.
Sports are just in mainstream society. You have to look at the rights of an individual to do what they want. Colin Kaepernick was not imposing his will or thoughts on anybody, Charlton.
Yeah.
He didn't forcefully look at anybody and tell them you had to look at me.
Yeah.
And the thing about this with Colin Kaepernick, Charlton, Colin Kaepernick sit on the bench for 2 weeks without having a uniform on. He said that this didn't come up because he had a uniform on.
Yeah.
But those anal retentive people that were looking and finding Colin Kaepernick, they said, okay, we got to find something else to pick on this young man about.
Yeah.
It's not about football.
Yeah.
They have not talked about football. He's still a tremendous football player.
Oh, yeah.
But they're dealing with him socially, not professionally. And that shows the small-mindedness of those people outside the arena looking in and saying, hey, this is something else beyond the game. He is playing the game. He is being a teammate. Trent Dilfer said he should sit down and be quiet. He didn't say anything.
Right.
He didn't hold up a banner.
Right.
He didn't grab a mic and say, this is my stance.
Yeah, Trent was grandstanding.
Quietly.
He was grandstanding because
he had a chance to go back out and try to make his name larger than what it is.
Yeah.
That's Trent Dilfer we're talking about. Colin Kaepernick was quiet.
He was quiet, and also for Trent and everybody else who wants to get on a high horse, even Tony La Russa of all people with the steroid-led Oakland A's at the time under his regime, Big C.
Well, not only
the Minnesota Twins.
Also think about the St. Louis Cardinals. The Bash brothers, half of them were there.
Yeah.
With McGuire.
Yeah.
But Charlton, you just spoke about the Minnesota Twins. In May 17th, 2015, 18 Minnesota Twin players refused to come out for the national anthem. Not one, Charlton. 18 refused to come out of the dugout for the national anthem. Was there any backlash? No,
were they all African? Were they all African American, Big C?
No, they were all white. They were making a social stand about something.
Wait a minute. Let me ask you this question. Because Skip Bayless, I respect him because I thought it would be someone like a Bob Costas because they put Bob Costas on there like he's this maven and this highly respectable person with NBC Sports, but he just wants to get a paycheck. He's not socially conscious at all. They're so comfortable. Skip Bayless was talking to Sharp, and I think they even had Ray Lewis show up. And these guys are multimillionaires, but I'm so proud of them because they're not just some sycophants trying to read the score again, because they even talked about what it's going to take to make life better for their kids. And Sharp even said that it was a Caucasian male that helped his mother when they were growing up. Those are the kind of white consciousness we're talking about, not the guys like Bob Costas or Jim Nantz that say nothing but collecting paychecks. They just are comfortable. So Skip Bayless, as a Caucasian man, he could be comfortable, he could be silent, he could be quiet, but he was sincere when he told Sharp and Lewis, what can I do as a white male to help young black kids? I mean, if they had 1,000 guys like Skip Bayless, I think our society would move a lot further in eradicating poverty, Big C, and also sexism, Big C. So congratulations to Skip Bayless. For all you other white guys who are afraid, that's the leader. That's the white Muhammad Ali. So I congratulate him for his stance on being a human being, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, Skip has always been a trailblazer back to his beat writer days in Dallas when he was covering SMU.
Yeah.
He understood integration back in those days. when he challenged the Dallas Cowboys early in the 80s, Charlton, when they were struggling.
Yeah.
He spoke out. He wasn't one of those guys that say, hey, let's make just a good, feel-good story. He told the truth about what he saw and what he heard, okay, Charlton? Skip Bayless has been the same way when he was on ESPN now that he's even moved to Fox.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be that individual that at times will go outside the box. Just tell the truth.
Yeah.
You have to be honest in this world. I mean, there's too many intelligent people who watch television, who listen to sports shows, who watch this, to say, hey, I want to be dumbed down.
Yeah.
You know, they've done that.
Just drink my beer. Just give me a beer and some hot dogs and let me just watch the game. I don't want to be intelligent. I don't want to be well-read. I just want to watch the game. And I'm so tired of those kind of people, Big C. And I know a lot of them still have jobs in TV because they criticize you when you speak out against anything that white people do that's egregious. I grew up around black and white, so it doesn't matter to me. I've seen good and bad in all people. But I'm also saying it takes good-hearted people like a Skip Bayless. I'm not saying he's perfect, but he's at least has an interest in making sure that life is better for all people. And speaking of making life better for all people, this segment is sponsored by United Labor. Guaranteed $100,000 life insurance policy with no medical questions, up to $100,000. We're also endorsed by the American Cancer Society and the American Heart Association, and we work with all of the unions in the country under the AFL-CIO. In fact, it's the unions that made the NFL great, Big C, because they're the ones building all the stadiums, the union workers. So tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. If you're looking for work, we simply want to put people to work. Unlike Donald Trump, we're not trying to build a wall, we're trying to tear the wall down, Big C. And also talking about building walls and tearing walls down, Big C. In the NFL this week, some great games coming up. I know the Atlanta Falcons, the good old boys down south, they're coming out to the black hole, Big C, and they're going to take on Gopher 2 Jack Del Rio, Big C. So the Falcons might be in trouble coming out to Oaktown, Big C. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, the Falcons didn't fare well last week, Charlton, against a young quarterback in Jameis.
No, wait. How are you going to say that? Didn't they pay Ryan over $125 million? What do you mean they didn't fare well, Big C?
Well, you know, Matt Ryan has been that franchise quarterback, Charlton, for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
And in that decade, I believe he has one playoff win in that decade.
Well, how much more do you want, Big C? Is it one enough for $125 million? I mean, come on, man. You're getting greedy.
Well, you know, you got to find a guy who can get it done. I mean, he has two great receivers in Muhammad Sanu and Julio Jones, and a couple of the top receivers in the NFL. He has a decent running back in Devontae Freeman. Yeah. But, you know, the Falcons have put all this money, just like the Colts have, in the quarterback position. Yeah. And yet they haven't built an offensive line to protect these guys. Yeah. So when you got a quarterback making $125 million and you got an offensive line that's combined probably making $13,000, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah. That's a lot of money, Big C.
Of that $13 million, Charlton, one guy is making about 8 to 10 of it. Okay. Yeah. They got their left offensive tackle that was a number one draft pick a couple of years ago out of Texas A&M. So when you think about that, and you got offensive linemen blocking for this quarterback making less than $1 million, and you're wondering why he has no protection, like in Indianapolis, where you have 4 rookie offensive linemen. You got the same thing in Indianapolis. I mean, in Atlanta, you got a bunch of journeymen. Yeah. But making that move out to Oakland, and we saw how Oakland played offensively last week. Yeah. You know, here it is. Derek Carr kept pace with Drew Brees. Yeah. One of the biggest guns in the NFL. Oh, yeah. So if he can continue to play like that, and Atlanta hasn't proven that they can play defense yet, you can look for the Raiders to be 2-0 and Atlanta to be 0-2, Charles.
Well, you know, when you think about how things turn on the two-point play, I've heard the Bay Area media saying that Jack Del Rio, he had to go for 2 because they couldn't stop Drew Brees. The Raiders' defense is still trying to recover. They just haven't found their groove yet, out in the secondary, at least, Big C. But Drew Brees can make anyone look bad. So I think the Raiders coming home, playing in front of the black hole, that's a game that they must win. And the Raiders in the past would have found a way to lose that game. But I think if you look at also Ryan, he's one of the 4 quarterbacks in the last 4 years that have thrown for over 4,000 yards. But that's not always a good thing, Big C, when you're not running the ball and getting first downs the hard way. But I also want to ask you about the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I love Jerry Jones because if we don't win the lotto, we can always become friends with Jerry Jones, Big C. Maybe he'll break us off some money, Big C. Get him some moonshine, let him fall asleep, and maybe he'll gamble on us the way he gambles on Tony Romo all the time. But he says that Tony Romo had x-rays on his back last week, and after Sunday's game, Jerry Jones said that he's going to leave it in the hands of God, the way we're doing with the lottery, Big C. We're going to leave that in the hands of God, too. But he still wants to ride the back of Tony Romo. Is that something that he should try to cut bait with, Big C, or do you agree with Jerry Jones?
Well, in a little over a decade of play in the NFL, Tony Romo's made the playoffs twice, Charlton. So I guess when you're paying,
but see, Big C, that's the problem with you. You want guys to win. Why can't you just like the guy because everybody says he's a good guy, Big C?
The thing about Tony Romo, Charlton, you got to look at it. Tony Romo was a free agent in the NFL.
Yeah.
Him becoming a starter in the NFL basically was his Super Bowl. He had reached his crescendo.
Yeah.
Became a starter in the NFL for the Dallas Cowboys. He had got as high as he wanted to get. Yes, he's had some decent years throwing the ball, Charlton, but he's become injury plagued. I mean, you take a step. You look at Tiger Woods, having the back problems, and that's just golf.
Yeah.
He can't swing the club the way he used to. Now, this is Tony Romo, who got hurt in a preseason game against Seattle, breaking a bone in his back. He had the broken shoulder twice last year.
Yeah.
There's not much left in the tank for Tony Romo. The Dallas Cowboys have to build for their future. You can sit there. It's like the end of Troy Aikman's career.
Yeah.
Where he became concussed on several occasions.
Yeah.
And they were holding on to Troy saying, well, he'll get over it. That's the same thing you're looking at Tony Romo. He no longer can throw the ball with the velocity that he once did, a la Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
His mobility is going to be hurt because he's going to be really dressed up in flat gear around his torso.
Yeah.
So, these are problems that are going to be presented. So if the Dallas Cowboys, they're going to have to invest in developing Dak Prescott. If he's not the answer, they're going to have to look elsewhere and bring in a veteran quarterback. They have Mark Sanchez on the bench, but I don't think that Tony Romo will no longer be the future or even the presence of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, it's definitely time to put some time into Prescott, because if you can't see that he's the future, maybe Jerry Jones is drinking more moonshine even than you, Big C. So maybe you guys can talk about that when you meet. Another team he's from the South. I think he went to Arkansas. Didn't he play on the same team with Jerry Jones? Yeah, so he knows a lot about football and the moonshining that goes on. Who was the actor? He played in Forrest Gump. His name was Tom. He went to Sacramento State.
Tom Hanks?
Yeah, Tom Hanks. Yeah. Tom Hanks, and they talked about shrimping. He had his friend Bubba Gump Shrimp. He had the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, and that's the same smell I smelled in your Cadillac last time I came down South Big C. So I think you and Tom Cruise and Bubba Gump had something in common. But also talking about shrimping, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they had running back Chris Ivory was released from the hospital. He went in for some undisclosed reason, but hopefully he'll be back to play because he missed their opener against Green Bay. But Jacksonville had a pretty decent game. And also, we talked about the New Orleans Saints. They released the running back C.J. Spiller, who signed a 4-year, $16 million free agent contract last season. Why would they release Spiller, Big C? Your thoughts on that?
Well, when you think about this guy scored no touchdowns last year, Charlton. He's a former number 1 draft pick of the Buffalo Bills out of Clemson several years ago.
Yeah.
But, coming over, he was injury plagued in Buffalo. He came over to the Saints. He could not beat out or even challenge Mark Ingram. The running back that they had, the Heisman Trophy, went out of Alabama.
Yeah.
So, you invest $16 million in a veteran running back, you expect some productivity.
Yeah.
But, in 16 games last year, he was unable to get into the end zone. The opening game this year, the shootout with Oakland, he was unable to get into the end zone. So they felt that they needed to cut ties, save some cap money, and put in a younger player who was a little more hungry. Sometimes these veteran players, Charlton, get a little complacent when they get a lot of money. All of these big-name quarterbacks we talked about, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, Jay Cutler. I got the money. I'm not going to get hurt. That's where it is. They're not trying to prove themselves.
Well, I think that means that they're actually smart, Big C, because the NFL, unlike Major League Baseball, there's no guaranteed anything outside of a few bucks compared to Major League Baseball. And also, when you look at, you just talked about the same thing that I'm going to bring up right now, because the winning teams, you talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, how they invested in the offensive line. You talked about the Los Angeles Rams and Fisher. They went after a quarterback instead of building up their offensive line. We talked about some of the great football teams over the years, even the Dallas Cowboys under Jerry Jones. When they had Aikman, they built their offensive line. The Green Bay Packers left tackle David Bakhtiari has signed a contract extension to stay in Green Bay, and a person familiar with the talk said it's a 4-year deal worth $51 million. That's to protect a guy like Aaron Rodgers. They have the blueprint, and they understand, Mike McCarthy, what it takes to build a winning football team. And so if your good old boys in Indianapolis are trying to put Andrew Luck out there as a $140+ million quarterback, look at what Green Bay is putting their money to keep Aaron Rodgers safe, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you have to start in the trenches, Charlton. That's the heartbeat of any solid organization, whether you're in high school, college, or professional football. Without that quality offensive line, you cannot expect to have anything in return from the backfield. That quarterback has to be upright, not have stand in the pocket with fear. And so when you invest in that offensive line, guys that I hated throughout my career, because they were all dirty.
Yeah.
They were all...
Wait, you saying offensive linemen are dirty? The only dirty offensive line, I think, Bill Walsh taught that leg whip that the 49ers were notorious for. And I think they helped them win 5 championships, Big C. So it wasn't considered dirty in DeBartolo's mind, Big C. Your thoughts on that?
Well, they were the leg whipping, they were holding all the time. I mean, the refs could throw a flag every play.
Yeah.
But at the end of the game, that flag would no longer be yellow, it'd be green and brown, because they throw it so often.
Yeah.
And those offensive linemen, I mean, they did things to you that they were illegal every chance they got. They walk up to the line and saying illegal stuff to you. So, when you invest in these guys in the offensive line, Charlton, you're building towards the future of your franchise.
Yeah.
And you look at every team that has been represented in the Super Bowl in the past 2 decades, Charlton, they've had a solid, consistent offensive line built with veteran players that have been together and had continuity.
Yeah.
But when you're interchanging these guys because of salary cap implications, Charlton, you cannot expect to be a winning organization. You hold on to a quarterback for 7 to 10 years, but you interchange his offensive line all the time. That's where the inconsistency is in his offensive line, and so you're going to never expect greatness out of it. If you're going to invest in them, spend money on an offensive line, Charlton.
Well, you're definitely right when it comes to the offensive line, Big C. And another, I think, a great game this year. It's already setting up for a game that can decide the division when you look at the NFC. You have the Green Bay Packers playing Minnesota, and I know we don't have Bridgewater, but if you look at the NFC North, and you have right now the Packers are a 2.5-point favorite at Minnesota, which has one of the most gorgeous new stadiums in the NFL. I really like the design of that stadium, Big C. But that's a game where we just talked about Green Bay investing in their offensive line. Can they go into Minnesota in the Dome and get a win there, Big C?
Well, TD Bank Field is a new stadium there in Minnesota, just a marvelous state-of-the-art glass dome stadium where, you have the visual from the outside, but it also reflects the sun.
Yeah.
And it's not directly onto the players or onto the field. But, it's going to be a challenge, with Green Bay going in there. They had some challenges last week in Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah.
Minnesota's a lot better veteran team. The quarterback situation, I don't know if it's been settled with Sean Hill. There were some passes that he let get away from him last week. The arm strength is going to be the question.
Yeah.
But also, Green Bay lost Sam Shields on defense. And can Clay Matthews and Julius Pepper get back to all-pro form? We saw Minnesota's defense dominate Tennessee last week. But this week they're playing against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers.
Rodgers is the different quarterback. Jordy Nelson, if he's healthy, I think they lost Cobb last week, one of the receivers there in Green Bay.
Yeah.
But, Jordy Nelson will be a key to this game if he can play up to his old self.
And speaking of playing up to the old self, this segment is sponsored by United Labor Guaranteed, $100,000 life insurance, no medical questions. Also by One Life America Life Insurance, we're the leaders in the country when it comes to final expense. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports. Again, we're looking to hire over 1,000 licensed insurance agents to go to work and help protect American families. You can follow us, Charlton and Big C Sports, on the iHeartRadio network. Also want to say hi to Lee Steinberg. Sent you that information, Lee Steinberg, that your office requested. Look forward to hearing from you. And also, Big C, when it comes to hearing from people, I know the NFL just cracked down on the Denver Broncos, and this is a great football team, but I think they have some dirty play, Big C. They're actually a 6-point favorite over Indianapolis and Andrew Luck. That game's at Denver this week, but they had some issues happening. Some of their players were actually called out and admonished by the NFL for headhunting, Big C, against Cam Newton. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it was seen during the game, but, I would like the NFL to go a step further other than just fining players.
Yeah.
I think you need to fine some officials for not getting players out of the game, throwing the flags on players, Charlton, because you're sitting there watching. Now, if you can go back to a replay booth, Charlton, pull up a suspect
for 5 minutes.
Out of bounds,
5 minutes at times.
5 minutes, as you say, under the hood. You sit there and you see a quarterback being hit in the head.
Yeah.
We saw that last year. And, when we talk about concussion protocol in the NFL, and they always talk about protecting quarterbacks hands off.
Yeah.
Now, we've seen Aaron Rodgers be concussed over the years. We've seen Ben Roethlisberger be concussed.
Yeah.
But the hits that were laid on Cam Newton were, not borderline. They were illegal, Charles.
Yeah.
And these officials allowed that. That's just like the stance that Colin Kaepernick is taking. Because Colin Kaepernick took this stance, it's allowed by national media to berate him, to go after him and so-called chastise him and beat him down. For what? This was allowed by these officials in this game against Carolina from the Denver Broncos defense to beat down Cam Newton. And for what reason? Because he didn't speak out negatively against Colin Kaepernick when he was questioning the news earlier that week. But these officials should have
I never thought about it that way, Big C. I never even thought that I haven't heard him ask many of the Caucasian quarterbacks their thoughts on the stance that even Skip Bayless, as a Caucasian media person, is saying, what can I do to help solve this issue? Because Skip Bayless doesn't just see African Americans as athletes. I mean, sometimes we're bigger, strong, and fast, but we're more than that. We're part of the American economy. But I would like to ask Skip Bayless to ask someone that's in his same skin complexion, whether it's a Jim Nantz or whether it's any of the brethren. I mean, even Berman at ESPN, everybody respects Berman, but I want to see Berman in that conversation about what he thinks it would take to make life better for all people. Dr. King didn't just stand up for black Americans. He stood up for all people, but I didn't even think about the fact that maybe some pushback over Cam not asking or not answering the question about what Colin Kaepernick was doing.
He didn't answer the question. They go out and
ask him. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
His dad or his big brother, what do you think about this issue? Do you think it was right? You know, you don't ask a fellow player that.
Yeah.
You know, that's not his position to judge. But, you know, they asked the white players and they were outspoken. Cam was not. And so when the game rolled around, the officials are sitting there and said, well, we'll let all these hits take place on you. And I can't see it being any other way, Charlton. You know, when these officials are trained, they're professionals. And you're sitting there and you're seeing this helmet-to-helmet shot from a defender, Charlton, on a helpless quarterback.
Yeah.
And you're saying, well, it's okay. It wasn't, Charlton. I look at it as backlash because he didn't say anything negative about Colin Kaepernick, Charlton.
Well, that's interesting. I never really thought about it that way, Big C. This last segment is sponsored by BeneathHisWingsFoundation.org and CYNN Entertainment. When it comes to entertainment and promotion, Cynthia Evans is the best in Northern California. Big C, one of our broadcasting brethren, I mean, if we could all have the type of career that he's had, I think we would do nothing but celebrate, Big C, and drink a lot more moonshine than you currently do right now, Big C. But out here on the West Coast, just the perfect broadcaster for baseball, and everybody has their own choice. But when I look at Vince Scully, he's going to skip the Dodgers playoff games if they make it. He's actually going to call his last game at AT&T Park in San Francisco. He's been doing this 67 years. He's 88 years old. When you talk about longevity, and a person that has done it with class, he saw integration in baseball. He saw so many of the good and bad, the steroid era, and all these things that we wanted to do to clean up baseball, Big C. Just your thoughts on someone who's done it for 67 years, Big C.
Well, he's done it with integrity, Charlton. That's the key. When you look back at Vince Scully's career and the time frame that it's spanned, you know, he's seen all the greatness in baseball.
Yeah.
He's seen the eras come by. He's seen the troubled times in baseball pass. He's seen the great pitchers. He's seen the great hitters. But he's always been an honest broadcaster.
Yeah.
And, you know, his greatest attribute, Charlton, is that he has worked alone.
By himself,
he has not had a play-by-play. You know, he's been the play-by-play and the analyst, Charlton, during the game. And when you sit back and you listen to the delivery that he has, how he educates you on every pitch, every play, every run, every hit, every caught and thrown ball. It was an education, Charlton. It wasn't about trying to be bigger than the game. And when you look at these broadcasters today, they're about showmanship. They're not about telling you or educating you about a game. It's about, listen to me. This is how I act in the booth.
Yeah.
I'm being a circus act. And basically that's what it's come down to with majority of these guys. They take away from the game and talk about themselves. You have to take the audience and educate them, enhance their viewing and listening pleasure. Let them know some things that they may not have spotted. But take those little tidbits and idiosyncrasies of the game, Charlton, and explain it. That's what Vince Scully has done. You know, when you talk about radio is the theater of the mind. And Vince Scully has been the maestro of that theater, Charlton, for 67 years.
Well, I'm telling you,
done it better.
No one has done it better. And just a little bit about baseball. We have some games starting tonight, Big C. The Oakland A's, they're playing at Kansas City. Cleveland's playing at the Chicago White Sox. We have Texas, and they're at Houston in a big in-state rivalry game. And we also have Seattle, and they're playing the Angels over in the National League. The Dodgers and Kershaw, you know, he had a game earlier today, which kind of rained out, but he only gave it one hit in 64 pitches against the Yankees. And we have the Mets and Washington and Pittsburgh. They're playing at Philadelphia. and also Miami's at Atlanta, Milwaukee's at Cincinnati, and Colorado's at Arizona. But back to Scully before we close out, Big C. He's going to do his last game at Dodger Stadium on September 25th against the Colorado Rockies. And I'm just proud to say that I'm in the same business that Vin Scully's in, because here's someone who's done it right. He's been fair and equitable in the way he calls the games. And everybody, all of his broadcast brethren, they have nothing but love for him. Your thoughts on him as we close out Big C on Vin Scully?
Well, when you look at young broadcasters on television today, Charlton,
yeah,
and their arrogant stances that they all have, if they took a step back and learned from someone like Vin Scully,
yeah,
listen to this man, understand his delivery, what he's trying to get across to the viewing audience, because that's what's important, is the viewing and listening audience. Those people deserve the best of you when you're on radio and when you're on television. They don't deserve to know about you. They deserve the best from you as far as you delivering that product that they're paying and spending time listening to and that they want to appreciate.
Yeah.
They know who you are in the booth, but let them know who's on the field and what's occurring on the field of play.
Yeah.
That's what sports are all about, Charlton. Not about the broadcaster, but about the game. The game is the entity.
Yeah.
Not the individual sitting there with a tie on and a Brooks Brothers suit. Scully never wanted to be seen. He only wanted to be heard.
And speaking of being heard, you can hear us every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide on the iHeart Radio Network with Charlton and Big C Sports. We want to keep it to you and bring it to you real. We call it Real Talk. And I also want to say, keep our women safe. Let's say no to domestic violence. No one should ever put a hand on a woman. And if they do, just call 911. Let's keep everybody safe as we enjoy this beautiful season of football and also baseball and all the great things that we enjoy as Americans. Again, Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Worldwide, you can follow Charlton and Big C Sports. And as we always tell you, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.